Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is Isaiah Middleton, and me and my group had John Brown on the raid on Harper's Ferry. And my question was, how was the Lincoln centric story of abolition we're told today wrong? And basically, what I got from that was, throughout my years in middle school and elementary school, we were told that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves because he thought slavery was wrong and it was bad, so that's why he did it. But as we all know, that was wrong. As I got older and I learned more, I was taught that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves because they were losing the Civil War and he needed more people to fight on his side. Um, as far as how that relates to John Brown, after the raid of the ferry, at a speech Lincoln did at Cooper University, he went on to repeatedly say that he did not support the actions of John Brown and that um, there were no Republicans involved in the raid or the revolution or whatever you want to call it. And he also went to say that even the claim that there might be a Republican that was involved was malicious slander, even though him nor anybody else besides the people that were involved didn't know if there were any Republicans present at the time or that supported it.
Another important topic pertaining to John Brown is the legacy he left behind. Around the time he raided Harper's Ferry and was later hanged, America had very split views on him. Slave owners regarded him as a villain, whereas fellow abolitionists considered him a hero. Researching more into John Brown, I have seen him been mentioned as the United States' first domestic terrorist, but also a fighter for human rights. He took action against something so fundamentally wrong, yet was so widely socially accepted. But he also killed slave owners, which, regardless of what wrongs they have committed, is still murder. John Brown definitely had radical views, and many think he wanted to resort to violence from the start of his time as an abolitionist, but what I have found is that he originally wanted to take a nonviolent route in ending slavery. However, he did not see that happening anytime soon, and after he saw innocent lives taken, he realized that violence and arming slaves and creating uprisings was the quickest way to start an end to slavery. Whether or not you see him as a terrorist or a person fighting for human rights is all based on opinion, but I think in the end he did what he thought was right and gave his life fighting for the rights of others.
John Brown, born May 9, 1800, died December 2, 1859 by hanging. He is known for a Harper's Ferry raid in Virginia. He came from an anti-slavery family. On May 25th, Brown and his sons attacked 3 cabins in Potawatomi Creek. His army grew to 22 men, including 3 of his brothers. On October 19th, some soldiers overran Brown and his followers, and 10 men were killed. He was found guilty of treason and murder. Before that, he asked Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass to join his raid, but they couldn't, and they declined. Douglass declined as he knew Brown's raid would fail.
The question I had was, how does John Brown's tale impact the way we understand U.S. history, and why do people think he was crazy? John Brown's tale impacts the way we understand U.S. history by telling us that not everyone in the South was supporting the Confederate Army. His actions went against the social norm in an attempt to overthrow the slavery system in Virginia. He led a small army to raid a federal arsenal and start a slave revolt in a pro-slavery state. Even though his attempt failed, it is an important part of history that is not often told in history books.
Patrols, commonly known as slave patrols, were established first in 1704 in South Carolina. Patrols were established to hunt for runaway slaves and reported missing slaves, and they were established to instill fear and control among the slave population in the South in response to slave owners' fears of a slave rebellion and uprisings. These patrols went all over the country, including the North, to hunt for these runaway slaves. Along with these patrols, many of them targeted young black men just for the color of their skin, and routinely killed young black men and faced no repercussion whatsoever. These slave patrols reveal much about power in a race in America. Patrols were just one of many examples of American policies and establishments used to oppress one population within the country. People like John Brown and other white Americans across the South fought to end slavery long before the Civil War even began. To this day, they stand side by side with all Americans in the fight for civil rights and equality for everyone in the country.